I just wanted to share what we've been up to, me and my hubs. Of course, I wanted to video him doing this, but he's a very busy man, and he's kind of a prima donna. He's got to be in the mood to make a video. So anyway, we started out with the kayaks years ago, and we've had multiple projects since then. But the latest thing we've been doing is having a desire to make things from clay. Things that are usable, things you can eat off of and drink out of and things like that. I don't know why it started. I've worked with clay over the years. When you have kids, you know, you make the salt clay, you make the play clay, paper mache, paper clay, all the little things you make Christmas ornaments out of, you bake them in the oven, all that kind of stuff. And so I've always been fascinated with molding and making and shaping and sculpting, but never really realized it could be more than decorative for me, what I had access to. So when I found out that the clay that I had bought years ago was just a sculpting clay, I didn't realize it could be fired and made permanent. And when I found that out, this fire started in my mind, and I told my husband how wonderful it would be just to make stuff, to give it away for gifts or whatever, not to sell or anything like that, but just for the sheer joy of being able to do it, and something that we enjoy doing together. So we started watching a lot of the shows out there. In Blackhorse Mitchell, we've been watching Andy Ward's Ancient Pottery, Pottery to the People, Florian Gadsby, Little Street Pottery, the raku firing method, which is interesting, and the Chaitu's World of Makings, and on and on and on. There's just been so many videos we've watched, and all of them have a little different way of doing it. But the basics is getting the clay, cleaning the clay, making sure it has enough grit to it, sand. So anyway, what we found, which I find this is really cool, this is the sculpting clay that I bought years ago. I had it sitting in my closet for about 5 years. Well, when I realized I was making some little clay characters, some little clay faces, and the lady that I paint pottery for had said, oh, I can fire that. They have an electric kiln. And I was like, I figured they would explode. Well, anyway, she brings them back to me, and they're beautiful. So I got very excited about that. And then I told my husband, oh, I would love to be able to do that. And he said, well, instead of getting a kiln, we'll make one. We'll make a primitive kiln, which we also have a video on that. Well, this clay apparently does not do very well in a primitive kiln because you can't control the ramp up. It just gets too hot too fast. This stuff explodes. Now, there were some pieces that survived, which puzzles me, because I made everything the same, so I don't understand why some pieces made it and some pieces exploded. But anyway, this is what I've been practicing on, and I've used it all now. And so this I can still have fired in an electric kiln, and that'll be beautiful, and I can paint it, whatever. Now this, the first creek we went to, I'll call it the DC Creek. And there is the red clay, and this has to have no amending. We dug it up one day. In fact, we'll have a video on that, going down to the creek and digging it up. And it has everything it has made. It dries well. I don't even have to slow dry it with a wet cloth or cover it with plastic. I can leave it and it doesn't crack, it doesn't break. We actually fired a little piece of this that I had already made up, just a little bitty cup, and it fired beautifully, retained the color. Now I realize that until it's sealed, it's gonna hold water, but like with terracotta pots and things like that, it will eventually have condensation, it'll bleed out a little bit, but it will hold water. But to seal it with glaze keeps the water from seeping out into the body. So, and I do want to do that. I do want to complete them and have them where they're usable and you can wash them and things like that. Okay, so we have this red clay. This is, we'll just say the DC Creek. And now this clay, which I love. My husband went with his grandson Caden, and so I wasn't there the day. They went down to BC, which is another creek in this area. And the clay is pink. I love that. So I don't know if you can even really tell in the lighting, but it's this beautiful pink color. And but the problem with this clay was it didn't have enough sand in it. It was very sticky and very hard to keep its shape. Well, this plate, I laid it out on a form and decided to paint it, but laid it out on a form, and this doesn't have any sand in it. This is just straight clay that they got from the creek. It warped a little bit, it's a little misshapen, but it held together very well. There's no cracks. I don't know how it's going to fire. I decided to paint it just to kind of see how that all would look against that pink background. Now this we added 1,500 grams of clay. We added 300 grams of crushed sandstone, and it dried much better. It's a little gritty. I sanded it down. It's still got a little grit to it, which that's fine too. I like that stoneware feel. And but it's a lot sturdier. It's a lot thicker, and of course it's got that really rough look to it, which I love that. Well, we went to we'll call it MC, which is another creek in the area. And everywhere we looked was this beautiful charcoal gray, black. And I thought at first that it was rocks, so I wanted to collect them. Well, they have a very soapy, waxy feel. Well, I collected some, and I told him, I said, I wonder, if we could even do anything with this. Well, we get home, and I'm scrubbing it down, and I'm carving it. It's like carving a bar of soap. And I said, I think it's probably, and we're newbies, we're learning, we are students. We watch videos and try to get information. I don't know what it's called. I don't know the terms of the compression and all of that. I don't know all the phases. But anyway, so we're carving this down. It's like carving a bar of soap. And I told him, I said, I don't know if we're going to be able to do anything with this because it's so waxy and plasticky. And so he decided, so, well, what I'll do, and it's messy, and it also stains your fingers. It's not hard to wash off. It's just messy because the other clays don't do that. Well, he gets a grater. He grinds it down. He adds water to it, adds a little sand to it, and he makes a little bowl. It's still a little tacky. This, it actually is very firm, very heavy, and I think it's going to work. But it takes a lot more work because apparently it's at a different stage of the compression than these were, or these might, whatever. But this, when I made this cup and he made this bowl, this was literally almost dry within 24 hours to 2 days, and we're not going to fire it yet. And I like to give it a couple of weeks. But you can tell when it dries, the color change, it gets lighter. Well, this one was still very sticky, very gooey. And I told him, I don't think this is gonna work. But today I put it in our mudroom so it'll be a little bit warmer and get it out of the air conditioning. And it feels wonderful. Now this stage where it's like we could probably carve it and make some designs, and he said, no, just leave it. We're just experimenting. But that, to me, I'm very interested in that because that's a beautiful color. And I would love to paint some things on there against that black background. I think that would be great. So anyway, so we're just continuing to experiment, and I am loving this process, making something from the ground. And my husband says, well, you're a purist. I said, well, I love the thought of taking something from nature and being able to come up with something, not using a stencil, not using a template, not using a kit, but just coming up with stuff, and we make it with our hands, and we design it with our hands, and we draw it ourselves. I love that. It's just exciting to me. So anyway, and eventually at some point, maybe in the future, we might even just give a lot of this away on the channel for whoever. Maybe take some donations for needy families or just something. I don't know. But that's what we're doing. And we are continuing to make videos about the process. I'm not a very good during tutorials. We don't do stuff like that. We just basically show you what we're doing, and maybe you can glean something from that as well. But I will put some of the channels that we've been watching in the link below, and perhaps if you're interested in that, you can click on that and check them out yourselves and get some information and start making pottery. All right, God bless.